If you're a woman over the age of 40 and you've been looking to get toned and lean and rebuild your metabolism, you probably came across tons of information that's like, you need to lift heavy. And if you immediately think, cool, how heavy is that? Then this video is for you. So, first of all, most women that I find either fall into one of two categories. They either think they're already lifting heavy enough or they're terrified of injury, especially when we're talking about women over 40. So, they think they need to play it safe forever. So, today I want to break down exactly how heavy you should be lifting in a way that makes sense so that you can finally know what to expect and exactly how much weight you should be lifting, because this is all about how heavy is heavy for you. So before we get into it, go ahead and drop me a comment and let me know, like, do you fall into one of those two camps? Or are you somebody who already, feels like you're lifting heavy enough, like you already got it down? Or are you somebody who maybe you've been taking it easy because you're afraid of injury? So first and foremost, when we're talking about lifting heavy for you, it's important to understand that lifting heavy does not mean deadlifting 300 pounds. It doesn't mean that you suddenly enter a strongman competition or become a power lifter. It just means that you are lifting an amount that challenges your body, because that's really important. But it's also important to understand that what's heavy for one person may be light for somebody else. So when you understand that if your goal is fat loss or muscle tone or metabolism repair, your weights have to be heavier than what you're used to, but they do still have to be safe and controlled. So it does matter that you have this fear around injury, because it's a valid fear to have. So I want to discuss both of those today. The first thing that I want to say is there's a test that I typically give to my clients and something that I teach inside of the EM2WL Training App whenever I'm guiding women in lifting heavier. And it's really simple, and it's how you know if you're lifting heavy enough. So you just take whatever weight that you're lifting, whatever weight that you're using, and you see if you can do 2 to 3 reps beyond the prescribed number. So if you're supposed to do 10, but you can hit 15 or 16, that's too light. It's like a very simple test to be able to do it, and applies to any rep range that you're in to make sure that you're lifting heavy enough within that rep range. So let's take a 10 rep range, for example. Let's say you're doing a program and there's 10 reps assigned. If you go to pick up the weight and you test yourself in this and you find that you can do 16 reps instead of the 10, you want to increase your weight. You want to try to do this early on in the workout so that you can make the adjustments, but sometimes people will do it later on and just make the adjustments in the next workout. Now, let's take that same 10 rep range, and let's say you grab a weight that you can barely get to 10, like maybe 9, you're starting to fail. That's actually going to be the sweet spot. So when you're right within that, like 1 to 2 reps above or below it, if you can hit 9 or maybe you hit 11, that's still good. You want to stop there. If you have that 10 rep range assigned, and let's say you're the person who like jumps the gun, you're like me, you just want to like lift as heavy as possible, and you grab a weight and you're going, but then you start getting to like 5 or 6 reps and you're like, yeah, I can't do more than 6. That's too heavy. So even though like it's great that you could get 6 out of it, that's a completely different purpose of a rep range. So it's important to understand that, because the goal that you're shooting for at 6 reps and the goal that you're shooting for at 10 reps are different. So you want to make sure that you're hitting the sweet spot for each rep range. So if that was to happen, then you would stop immediately and just pick up a lighter weight and finish up the reps. And then you would just make a note of that for future purposes of, okay, not to start with that amount, go a little bit lighter until your body adapts to it. When we're talking about these big jumps, a way to gauge so that you can prevent injury is to understand that the bigger the body part, the bigger the increase that you can make, and vice versa. The smaller the body part, the smaller you can increase. So as a general rule of thumb, if you're looking at larger muscle groups, your back, your chest, your legs, those, they can take some pretty heavy weight. You can probably jump 5 to 10 pounds at a time. When we are talking about smaller muscle groups though, like your shoulders and your arms, these are typically weaker areas, especially on women. You want to keep your incremental jumps to 1 to 3 pounds. And then you want to take these things and combine them with the test. So you don't just blindly jump up 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 1 pound or 3 pounds. You take them and you add that test to them. So let's say you're working a bigger muscle, you're working chest, and you decide, okay, it's time for me to increase. If your first increase is 5 pounds, let's say you're doing a bench press, you're going to take 2.5 plates and 2.5 pound plates and add them to each side of the bar. And then you're going to run the test. Am I failing right around the spot where I'm supposed to be failing? Or can I do it 3 reps more than what I'm supposed to be doing? If I can do 3 reps more, then I can go ahead and maybe make that 10 pound increase. So now you can take off those 2.5 pound plates, add on 5 pound plates. You've added 10 pounds because you've added 5 to each side. So that's kind of the way that you would do that, is you take it, you test it, and then you can add again to it until you find that sweet spot. And you would do the same thing with the smaller muscle groups. A lot of times people don't realize that 1 to 3 pound increments are even possible. Like, we don't think about that because maybe we're just looking at the weight selection that's laid out in front of us at the gym or based on what we have at home. But it really does pay to find those smaller ways of increasing when you're doing those muscle groups, especially because those are your supporting muscle groups and they're what help the bigger muscle groups to do their thing. So injuring those just messes up the whole thing because of the fact that now you can't lift as heavy as you want to on the other muscle groups. So for those smaller muscle groups, the tiny increases, that's where you want to look around for maybe having some like weighted gloves or fractional plates or something like that to be able to make much smaller jumps. And when you're doing it that way, that's going to help you to nail both of these things that we talked about today. It's going to help you to find your sweet spot, but it's going to help you to do it in a healthy way that doesn't completely throw the baby out with the bathwater because now you've injured one thing and you can't work out for, 6 weeks or 12 weeks or however long it takes for you to heal. So again, you can apply this test to any rep range, but it's important to remember that every rep range serves a different purpose. So when you're thinking about your rep ranges, you don't want to just find one and stick with it. Your body is always adapting and it will adapt not only to the rep range, but to the weight. So your sweet spot won't even always be your sweet spot. But you want to remember that because your body is going to adapt, you want to go through phases of being in each rep range. So each rep range, as I mentioned, has a different goal. That 1 to 6 rep range is going to be more of your strength. That's where you're going to be able to lift the heaviest, is when you're 6 reps or below. When you move into that 8 to 12 rep range, that's going to be your hypertrophy range, meaning muscle building. That's that muscle building zone that you're going to be able to lift moderately heavy. That's why I said it's not about just like going straight for powerlifting, because that puts you in strength, not necessarily in muscle building. So that's going to be that middle zone, 8 to 12 reps. You'll be able to lift heavier than if you were in endurance, but lighter than if you're in the strength rep range, which the next range is endurance. That's when you're above 12 reps. When you're like 12 to 20-ish reps, that's going to be more of an endurance-based workout. So you're working the endurance of the muscles. And I've done videos before on that about all the different rep ranges and how to tell which one is. So I will link to that because it will give you more information about the specifics of each rep range. The most important thing is to make sure that you are an equal opportunity rep ranger, that you are giving them all their time. And to remember that the lighter your weight, the more times that you can lift it. The heavier your weight, the less times that you can lift it. So whenever you're increasing in reps, you will decrease in weight, and vice versa. Whenever you increase in weight, you will have to decrease in reps. So those things go hand in hand. That's why there's no magical weight amount, because you're going to need different weight in different rep ranges. So that's why the test will always help you, because you'll nail it no matter which rep range that your program is in. And again, you want to be in all of them, because your body thrives on constantly changing and you preventing it from adapting. It wants to try to adapt. The adaptation is where the magic happens. But once you have adapted, there's no more magic. So the magic is in it trying to adapt. So you want to constantly keep things changing. So if you're somebody who's been dieting for years and you've been doing more and more cardio and eating less and less and still struggling to lose fat, the most important thing is that this is the missing piece. So I just don't want you to avoid it because you either already think you're lifting heavy enough, or you are afraid of being injured, and so you're playing it safe. Playing it safe is not going to get you the results that you want. Remember that when you're lifting, when you're lifting heavy and eating appropriately, that's going to add more muscle to your frame. When you add more muscle to your frame, that's going to give you a higher metabolic resting rate, which just means you are burning more calories when you're sitting still and doing nothing. We want that. We want a high metabolism as we're getting older, instead of everyone just sitting around thinking that, oh, well, I'm getting old, my metabolism has to slow down. No, we want it to increase. And when you lift heavy, that forces your body to hold on to that muscle that you built, so that it's not just burning it off because you're doing a bunch of cardio or dieting and trying to lose fat. So that means even when you're in a fat loss phase, your body's going to hold on to that muscle because you're running that test and you're lifting as heavy as you can with limited fuel. And muscle takes up less space than fat, which is very important for the person that's trying to lean out, because as you're building more muscle, you are going to look leaner because it's taking up less space, even if the scale stays the same. So even though like it will still have the weight that was there before, you will be leaner and more compact and tight and toned and lean, which is what a lot of women over the age of 40 are striving for. They've kind of gotten over the whole weight loss thing because that just keeps leading them back to ground zero, and they realize that this is the key to getting the things that they want and getting that physique that they want. So now you know exactly how to gauge where you are, and if you're lifting heavy enough for you, and you understand how to increase safely so we don't risk injury and not being able to lift anything at all. And you know that this is the secret, right? This is the fat loss secret for women over the age of 40. So let me know again in the comments, which one are you? Are you like, is there a rep range that you love? I'm a strength girl myself. I love lifting in that like 6 reps or less zone. I love being able to lift really heavy and see how strong I am, but I know there are some of my endurance girls out there, so let me know, do you like high reps, low reps, or somewhere in between? And if you're looking for a very structured training program, one that's going to actually guide you through all of the phases that we talked about and make sure you spend just the right amount of time in every single phase, and that you're constantly lifting where you should be for that phase, lifting heavy enough, doing the right amount of reps, and pushing yourself every single time, I highly recommend checking out the EM2WL Training App. I have it all spelled out for you. Every 4 weeks, a new phase just loads right into your calendar so that you have to keep it moving and your body never gets a chance to adapt. So definitely check that out. I'll link to it below in the comments, as well as some videos that will be helpful for you if this is the first time you're hearing about the different purposes of all the rep ranges. So definitely check those out, and I will see you guys in the next one.